Hello, hi, I'm Hadyan Akmal Irawan, and this is my presentation for my first assignment for the game design principle, titled Dave the Diver. A very good, boring game. Um, so yeah, let um, the 2023 Indie Hit is published and developed by Mint Rocket, a sub brand from the well-established South Korean developer Nexon. After releasing the early demo of Dave the Diver in June 2022, Mint Rocket finally released the full version in June 2023 on Steam, and followed by the Nintendo Switch version later in October the same year. The game was an instant hit and a surprise title to many, as the so-called indie game has become one of the hottest game and even compete with the other big title that released in 2023. The simplicity of the game brought fresh air to the gaming scene, which has had loads of complex AAA titles throughout the first half of the year. So, let's meet Dave then. He's our main protagonist throughout our journey in the mysterious blue hole, an enchanting sea full of all kind of giant creatures, species, treasure, and this whole mystical underwater world, which we'll talk about later. By day, we get the chance to explore the depth of Blue Hole, like dive under the sea, gathering all kinds of sea creatures and treasures, and going on a mystical journey. At night, we get the chance to work on a sushi restaurant, serving all kinds of menu that come with their own minigame. This cycle is repeated throughout the game while also adding more and more features and new mechanics to the player. So, why did people love it so much then? Now, between fishing and exploring the underwater world and the nightlife of running a sushi restaurant, Dave the Diver offers so much more than just that. The two sections always connected to each other in a way to achieve the player experience goal that are being designed by the designer of the game. And there are quite a few game mechanic that I find very enjoyable, namely catching fish. You catch fish by day, and then you use that fish to create a menu in at night and sold them at their sushi restaurant, and then you get coin from selling those menus, and then you use the coin to upgrade your tools, so you can get better fishes and unlock more menu, and then get more coin, and then upgrade your tools to like explore the sea, like get longer oxygen tank, get better knife, get better gun, the harpoon gun. And then you have this puzzle solving and adventure in the underwater world, where there are this mystical underwater society, I would say, that you get to know and like interact with, and then like Dave is there to help them solve their problem, or like the problem of the blue sea as a whole. I think it's more like that. But yeah, like the two part of the game, despite being very different mechanically, like one you are serving sushi with like mini games each time you serve beverage, and the other is like you diving into the sea and get fishes. Like the two is very different, but the two is always connected some way, despite I think having like very different tempo and pace each time you play both part, but they just work to get that player experience goals, which I think um, lies as a game that are going to as more like an adventure kind of game, as you like explore the depth of the sea and like get to the story, and how Dave tackle the challenges of the underwater world. And then there are also loads and loads of mini game, as not only at the nightlife, even the underwater world. You have this horse racing, and then in nightlife you have like this. There's this part, spoiler alert, where you go on a stealth mode with Dave, and you get this singing, and of course the mini games at the sushi bar itself, where each time you serve a beverage, you get different mini games to prep the beverage. And then on top of that, Dave the Diver also give us an amazing aesthetic experience, especially with how they use sound and their music when we explore the life both above and below the sea, which is, I think, one of the greatest feature in this game is like the artistic take on how the game is presented, like the music and the visual. They are just that so great. And then moving on, well, now I wanted to talk about the problem of this game. Despite being, dare I say, one of the best release in 2023 so far, the game still have its own problem. When you look at the reception of the game, most critics give it a high praise with little to no negative comments. But however, when you look at the user review, you start to see that there are perhaps flaws in how the game is designed. When examining the low score review, there are a theme in which the reviewer sees the game in that the game is quote unquote boring, especially going midway through gameplay where there aren't that many new mechanics that are being introduced to the player. Now, if we see it in a flow standpoint, review would often find a game to be not challenging enough, perhaps to the point where it become repetitive and uninteresting for the player. If we ignore the fact that I put a flowchart for a manga, the point of repetitiveness in this game perhaps happens somewhere around the middle of the chart where player skill has already adapted to the game, uh, but there isn't enough challenge from the game for the player for them to stay in the flow state throughout gameplay. So yeah, mainly I think it happens right like mid or like 3/4 of the game where you already introduced to all the mini games, and then you probably unlock most of the menus, and like adding more menus or like getting the mini games that they aren't that new, because it's surely it's harder, but I think I can see that for some players the challenges are just not enough. And the cycle too, it doesn't help the system where you get dive throughout the day and then serve sushi at night. The that repetition also didn't help the game to be you know uh more challenging or like hook the player, which I will talk about later. But I would also like to mention the fact that the game is released on both PC and Nintendo Switch, which I might taken apart on in how the game is perceived. Switch is a device that's solely made and used to play video games. PC, on the other hand, perhaps it's not something that is purposely made and used just to play video game. I argue that that have some impact on how the social aspect of the game, and in turn shape how the player on both platform interact with the game, which I know it's happened outside the circle of the game, even the circle of the play, and happen on the social context of the game. But I think it's still worth to mention that there are aspects of the game on how when we're doing a reception studies and how this game is perceived by different user. I think that is a variable that needs to put into context when seeing the review. And then in another graph, we could picture how the game picked the interest of the player to shell idea of interest curves. As we can see here, while an ideal circumstance, all three of the interest factor have a monotonic uptrend after the hook. I think Dave the Diver is arguably have a different way in attracting their players. Inherently the game premise are just interesting, because like you have Dave, which is an out of shape diver that goes into this mysterious place where there are monsters and treasures that lies at the bottom of the sea. And you as a player also get introduced to the night system, which pulls you away from those underwater adventure to a more grounded yet not less chaotic sushi restaurant environment. And there's also this other mechanic that I've mentioned before: the stealth, the horse racing, the music, and many more mini games that happen throughout the game. And as the game progressed, the inherent interest of the game might take a dip, since there's not much new mechanic that are being introduced to the player when you get to that certain point in the game. um However, as you delve deeper into the game, you start to invest more to Dave and his adventure, upgrading tools, unlocking new menus, trying to get better fish to get and then you get better fish to get more gold and turn that gold into better tools, and then explore more of the environment, the sea. Those mechanics force you to invest more time, energy, and emotion towards the game and allow the game to still be interesting enough for you and for you to want to go and have more of it. All the while, the game also gives you a stunning visual look with its retro looks and artistic take, and mesmerizing sounds that accompany you while exploring the deep blue hole and working at the sushi restaurant. That is, I think, what makes the game so great. And so, in conclusion, then, how would I like to solve this problem? Like, so what? Is it a problem? Does it need to be solved? While sure I can think of some fixes, such as making the puzzle harder, um, perhaps more minigame variety, introducing new mechanics as we progress in the game, but or even a change in the story pace itself, perhaps getting longer climb towards the climax, or getting a bigger dip towards the middle where you have this variety of players so they don't become stagnant and the game doesn't felt as repetitive. um but at the end of the day, I think this is the case. I really think this is just a case that you just can't satisfy everyone. I think Dave the Diver is a great game that implements all aspects of the game to reach the user experience, which is, I think, at its core, this is an adventure game. Um, it might not be perfect, but it is without a doubt a great game. Um, so yeah, that's it for me. These are the reference. I know there's a little to know reference that I used throughout the presentation, other than the one that already been explained in class, which mainly Shell and Fullerton, which I forgot even to put. So yeah, that's it. Dave the Diver, a very good boring game.